Okay, there we go. I forgot what I was saying.
The book club.
I got a strike from YouTube on my book club for my book club having medical misinformation, which was kind of crazy. I did a book club on a book by Frank Ryan called Virolution. And, you know, we had a really open kind of dialogue about viruses and you know, the whole concept of his book is is it editing us and changing us? And it was a lot about the endogenous retrovirus. But anyway, we got a strike and they removed that video from YouTube. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. It was just a book club. And it wasn't even a public, was not even a public video. So our book club is a private channel. So kind of strange.
Super weird.
Okay. Well, we'll get started. So tonight, many of you have, been with us before when Dr. Haroldo Magarinos has been here. He's a longtime friend of mine from back at the very beginnings of when I started the Bio Collective. We connected in Denver when he was in Denver, and we had this shared passion for the microbiome and how important it was to our health. And he was really the first doctor that I met who kind of really knew what it was and how it worked. And so, our journeys have been different, but in many ways similar in terms of working to find solutions to help people restore their terrain. And he's starting a new company, so he'll probably talk about that for a bit tonight. With that, I'll let him tell a little bit more about himself and what he's been up to, and talk to us a bit about toxic load and what we can do about it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much again for having me, Martha. It's always great to have these conversations. And right now it's like a different time for me because it's I'm about to launch my own company, which has been a year and a half of hard work to put together that. And there's a very profound commitment in helping people with something that I realized it's probably one of the most important health issues we are dealing with on this modern world. And it's now more than ever. And I like to see the conversation right now around this type of situations from even the government side. But still, we're on diapers in terms of solutions, really profound solutions. So I am I'm formerly trained as an oral surgeon. I'm a dentist, I'm a periodontist, oral surgeon, specialist, and then I became a naturopath, and I dedicated a long time of my life, not long, well, this is a long time, but just old enough to say that's important, but not so much. But I've been dedicated to understand and get trained and train others and help with people with microbiome imbalances. And that journey led me to meet Martha, which has been an amazing communion on a friendship, and we're both highly committed to get things sorted out in terms of the microbiome challenges we're seeing every day, and by the vast majority of the population. But in my journey, when we have I had a different road on my research, while Martha has been fully committed to untangle every little detail about the microbiome. She's been very successful about that and put together all these amazing products to help people with microbiome dysbiosis and improving all the metabolic pathways related to those issues. I realized that we needed to also fix the terrain, which can be partially done by fixing the microbiome, but there's another piece of the puzzle, which are toxins. And toxins are greatly imbalancing the microbiome. And the reason is because the microbiome actually takes care of the toxins we're getting exposed to on a day-to-day basis. And the part that really it's mind-boggling is that the microbiome will do something to take care of the toxicity exposure, remove those toxins out of your body, out of your system in a more efficient way, but it has to do that by switching the compositional patterns that you will normally have without that toxic exposure. So there's a consequence in terms of the balance of your microbiome when you get exposed to these toxins that makes that switch. Now, because of that switch, they're able to make things like cytophores and other chelating molecules, even that hydrogen sulfide that we have been demonizing so much related to SIBO is actually a highly potent chelating molecule for a lot of heavy metals and other types of xenobiotics. Xenobiotics are foreign toxic molecules. Remember that we have also the endotoxins, which are the ones we're making through the microbiome that we're releasing these lipopolysaccharides, etc. Well, but we have this external source of toxins that we call xenobiotics, and the microbiome takes care of this. So when I was seeing, I don't see patients anymore, but when I did, I was getting all these protocols together for fixing the microbiome, getting people better, and I was hitting a wall very frequently. And I was not able to move the needle as much as I wanted with the microbiome rebalancing strategies. And I was like, what's going on? I mean, this is something that's supposed to work. I'm eating the right foods. I'm doing my protocols in a very consistent manner. People are responding well to the protocols. They're not getting challenged. They're not reacting with side effects that I will point out that they might be related to the supplements they're taking right now. And yet the needle is not moving enough to make the changes in the microbiome analysis and on the set of symptoms that the person related at the beginning to the extent that I will feel happy about it. And of course, the patient was not excited about it either. Of course, they were looking for something better. I was looking for something better for them. They expected something better too. Yes, we were making improvements, but not so much. And so that was disappointing. And then I came to this aha moment where, due to a coincidence, I got a microbiome testing and a toxicological analysis on the side. And this actually started with a dear friend of mine that down the road became my business partner. But he was very challenged on his microbiome, and he was very sick, unfortunately. And then when I saw this in side by side, the amount of toxins that this person had was huge. And when I realized that, with my basic knowledge about detoxification, I mean, I've been trained in advanced chelation therapy by ACAM. I know how to do EDTA and DMSA and all these things intravenously. But I was never really fond of that. And I started using detoxification protocols, especially for kids in the spectrum. But that was pretty much my only approach on detoxification strategies at that point. But then I start using the same tools and improving those for making them work for adults. And we start using that protocol. Within a month, we resolved dramatically all these symptoms that we were seeing on the gut microbiome spectrum or gut-related symptoms. Then we did really soon after, we did another testing for the microbiome, and things were getting better. And that, again, was eye-opening. And I thought, well, this was my missing piece, to the point that became so relevant that my company right now has nothing to do with the microbiome directly. I'm not competing with Martha at any point. Thank you, Martha.
Together.
Actually, we're creating synergistic approaches for fixing the microbiome through detoxification. So everything else that you can create as a positive input from the genes you're putting from those beautiful probiotics, from the upregulating the pathways, from the input that you get from the microbiome, from the probiotics you're using towards the microbiome. So boosting your butyrate production, your propionate production, acetate production, and improving neurotransmitter production, fixing the gut lining, creating better repairing on the tight junctions, improving the mucin 2 layer, all these things that we need to keep our microbiome healthy, that are coming from benefits that you can bring with different strains of probiotics, plus of course diet changes and other lifestyle changes that are needed. Well, those things, they will get much better if they have a better terrain where they will be landing, so it's benign to them and is able to support what these probiotics want to do. Because as any other living form, we are restricted by the environmental conditions. I take any of you today to the Sahara Desert and I leave you there by yourself for a couple of days. I probably will not find you after a couple of days, not because you're not perfectly fine at the moment that I put you there, but because the environment was not supporting the necessities you have in order to survive. So you can't be functional in that environment for too long. Now, if they put you in a beautiful resort in the Bahamas with a lot of food and a great weather and beautiful scenery, you will be thriving there. You didn't change. Same person, different environment, complete different reaction. The responses are dictated by the environment. Now, if you have a toxic environment, it's very unlikely you will be able to perform optimally. Now, when you have all these heavy metals, all these organophosphates, all these phthalates, all these bisphenols, dysregulating your receptors, dysregulating the functionality of your support organs, affecting your pH, your production of bile, your production of stomach acid, your pancreatic enzyme production. When you're dysregulating all these fluids and molecules that are managing and keeping your environmental settings under control, now your microbiome gets off. And then anything that arrives will also not be able to survive. That is a missing piece that we need to realize in order to fix the microbiome for good. Now, it is challenging because we are getting exposed to a huge amount of toxins every day. So we were perfectly designed to detoxify on a day-to-day basis without any support. We didn't need anything because the amount of toxins we were getting exposed to was very little. If you track the environmental amount of toxins we had in the late 1800s or at the beginning of the 1900s, in the 1920s, 1940s, we have some research about toxicological exposure by then. It was minimum. We didn't have glyphosate around. We didn't have atrazine around. We didn't have 2,4-D around, which are all huge, horrible chemicals that are commonly used in the agricultural production. And then all these plastics that you find even in the placenta, all these other endocrine disruptors like phthalates, all the preservatives. Now they're fighting dyes. I can care less about dyes. I'm so sorry. But dyes are like one speck of the big issue that we have for toxicological.
Like,
Uh,
look over here, not over here.
exactly. We're looking at look here, looks Cheerios. You know what? Fruit Loops are terrible anyway. Don't eat them. And it's like
Right.
trying to untangle the bad things about McDonald's. You don't have to do the math. It's like obvious. That thing is like Frankenstein food in the first place. It doesn't matter if you find 20, 30, 50 toxins. That's terrible for you regardless. That you need to try to understand in detail what's bad about it. Just it's terrible by definition, period. The dyes, they're pretty obvious. Like, they have been banned in Europe for so many years. We're not getting a groundbreaking change in our food industry at this point with those things. They're bad, yes, 100%. They're bad, but it is a very big achievement. This is a milestone we arrived into, like that we can feel so proud about it. No, I'm so sorry, but it's just a very tiny advance in the whole change that is needed. Like, I don't know why we're not talking about glyphosate in the first place, or atrazine, or those things are concerning. Heavy metals in everything we see, like cadmium, arsenic, and aluminum. It's highly present in the soil right now, and you're dragging out all these other minerals because you're putting on all these other heavy metals on the top that they're depleting your soil.
So I was in a class a few weeks ago that included a guy from the agriculture industry, and I was talking about glyphosate chelating minerals out of the soil, and he made the comment that I didn't write down exactly. I think he said aluminum chloride actually prevents that. And so I wondered if they aren't putting aluminum chloride down to try to address the glyphosate chelation of minerals problem, and we may not be aware of that, but then we're getting this very dense load of aluminum, which is terrible for our brain. But, so that's kind of an aside. But so I've had on here about 6 months ago, a woman named Susan Gagne, who did a very detailed discussion about mycotoxins and the sources of the different mycotoxins in the food and where we're getting those. And of course, I talk a lot about endotoxin and LPS. And I recently did a podcast with Natalie Nidham, and she was calling them little pieces of shit.
Which they are. No, they're.
I said, well, that's a good catchy little phrase for the LPS that people don't know what they are. But maybe if you could just talk about some of these broad categories of the toxins that we're getting on a fairly regular basis and where they're coming from.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good idea. To give you the big picture, we have three main categories of toxins: mycotoxins, heavy metals, and industrial pollutants or environmental toxins. The heavy metal category is pretty straightforward. Are all these elements that could be nutritional to a certain extent. So even lead, believe it or not, is part of the is part of our chemistry and is part of the soil chemistry, and we need it in trace amounts, in minimum amounts. All minerals are needed. All metals are needed in very small amounts. The problem comes when we have too much of something and disrupts the balance of everything else. So those heavy metals we see as toxins are just because they have been incorporated in our environment in huge amounts. And now we're seeing the imbalance created by that level of exposure. Now, we know pretty famous mercury, lead, arsenic, of course, cadmium are the most trending ones. And we have a lot of research about the damage they create on the microbiome, actually, and on the human cells. Then we have mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are ubiquitous for any type of environmental setting. So mold is one of the most abundant microorganisms in Earth. So it's impossible to try to avoid them. It's trying to avoid viruses. It's impossible. They're like quadrillions in numbers around you, but they live in symbiosis with everything else. But they do produce something called mycotoxins because they want to fight off or compete against other opportunistic microbes like bacteria. So they don't use their space and they can survive and live somewhere where they want to. That typically occurs out there, like in nature. So they love cellulose. So they live in the cortex of the trees, and anything that has a lot of cellulose they will be deposited. So that's why you see a lot of mold in the growth in the cortex of the trees and in branches, and sometimes in the soil. Wherever they can find some cellulose, they will be very, very happy. Now, what happens is that we are making our walls and a lot of the structure of our houses with cellulose as well. That gets humid. And then we put an insulating barrier outside, but not typically inside. So these things are growing there when they hit a little bit of humidity, and then they start producing mycotoxins. And these mycotoxins are off-gassing inside our houses. And because we don't have the habit, especially in wintertime or in the middle of the summer, to open the windows. Because if you go to France, Italy, they don't have AC. They open the windows. Or they close the windows, depending on the time of the year. But here, we depend on forced air, AC. So we're pushing like a closed circuit air or coming from the outside, and it's getting accumulated inside. And all these mycotoxins that are being off-gassed from the inner side of the walls, or maybe the floor or somewhere else in your house, now they're getting elevated in high level inside your house, and now you're breathing them. Now, for a lot of people, they can cope with those, but a lot of people, they have some impairments on their immune system, and they have a huge challenge for eliminating them, and that causes a lot of issues. The last one, the environmental toxins, these are the broadest, like the biggest category. We have the famous forever chemicals, or PFASs. We have all the pesticides and herbicides in the spectrum, from the old ones like DDT, that, believe it or not, you will still see in people's urine samples because it's so persistent. It's part of the persistent organic pollutants chain. People nowadays, they will still have detectable levels of byproducts coming from DDT because it never left the soil after 40, 50 years of being banned in the usage of in the agricultural industry. So it's concerning. And in the same place, we have these PFASs that are coming in from multiple sources: clothing, cookware, and so on and so forth. Like there's so many things they use water repelling coatings for multiple uses. And we have also the byproducts from the industrial chemicals, and we have like a huge amount of them, unfortunately. So now, if you think about a day-to-day basis, from the moment you wake up on that pillow covered with fire retardants, and then we go and we wash ourselves with some chemically made soap, and we put some maybe moisturizer in our skin that can have some phthalates or other type of chemicals. Everything, of course, in plastic containers, which some of them are plastic type 1, which is leaking everywhere, especially that one. You always aim for 2, 5, or 7. Those are the best ones. But honestly, the best one is no plastic. Glass would be my preferred choice. And your water is coming from plastic pipes, and then you're getting showered with things with chlorine and all these other chemicals on the tap water, and that probably you will not leave the house and you're getting exposed to 100+ chemicals. That was never seen 40, 50 years ago. So it's pretty new. Now, microbes are amazing. They evolve pretty rapidly, transversally. They have this amazing ability of getting these quorum sensing systems where they pass information rapidly in a transversal way, so you don't need another generation to make the adaptations. So they will adapt. They will survive to these things. It just is not right for us because those changes creates impairments in the functionality of the microbiome, but they will still survive. We can't.
Well, I always tell people, like, sort of back to the terrain, when you're exposed to a lot of this chemical assault, like microbes can break anything down. And they can break down, they call it forever chemicals. It's not a forever chemical. Microbes break it down. But what you do is you select for a specific microbiome that can deal with it. And by doing that, you lose the benefit of the other microbes that can't deal with it. And then a lot of times in the process of breaking it down, some of the things they break things down to are not so great either. So, or you get this imbalance, like you mentioned, hydrogen sulfide. And hydrogen sulfide has been something, I've looked at a lot. There's also, people in this group from Dr. Davis's group who've looked at SIBO a lot, but hydrogen sulfide producers are elevated in Parkinson's. Well, hydrogen sulfide is a free radical scavenger at a low level, and it's sending out signals at a low level, but at a high level, hydrogen sulfide will kill you at a high level. So, that's kind of one of those underappreciated kind of pieces of the puzzle, is the gases that are being produced in the body by the microbes that are breaking down the toxins, whether that's methane or hydrogen sulfide or, what have you.
Yeah, it could be even cadaverine, putrescine. They seems to be very bad, but actually at low level production, they could be even repairing molecules, upregulating molecules for DNA repairing or other things are needed, like those polyamines are actually pretty needed. But when it comes, for example, to glyphosate, unfortunately, as you were mentioning, Martha, there's not only a killing process because you're blocking the shikimate pathway, which is essential for microbes because that's how they produce their essential amino acids. The problem about that is that some microbes are able to survive. They have a cope mechanism for that shikimate pathway impairment. Unfortunately, those are the ones that are producing more endotoxins than anything else. And the other ones that we are typically blocking are the ones that are related to neurotransmitter production, including tryptophan. So we're blocking tryptophan production. We're increasing lipopolysaccharide release, which are endotoxins. So we produce a high level of endotoxemia in the body, which leads to every single chronic illness we know. So when you have those ongoing exposures with, for example, heavy metals, the microbiome will respond accordingly. And one of the responses will be maybe producing hydrogen sulfide in larger amounts. And now you're disrupting the tight junctions because it becomes inflammatory. You halt the replication process of the colonocytes. So your gut lining is not repairing as fast as is needed, which creates leaky gut. Now you are opening the channels for those toxins to get in. But furthermore, you're also inducing changes on the microbiome that will lead to chronic inflammatory issues locally and systemically. So that connects the dots in a vast way for every single chronic illness you know. There's something it's called metabolic endotoxemia, which is all these metabolic syndromes we know that are related to high levels of lipopolysaccharides. Now, lipopolysaccharides are not bad all the time. So I like that term because it's funny, but also it's a little bit unfair because they're challenging our immune system to become active and responsive to a certain degree. We have more dominance in the gram-negative side of the presence of microbes in the gut than gram negatives, sorry, than gram positives. We have a little bit more gram negatives than gram positives in the microbiome composition in normal settings, like in balance, in a healthy balance. So we are always getting these lipopolysaccharides released in the environment. It's just we need only as much as it's needed for training and keeping your immune system active. Beyond a certain point, they overwhelm the system and they become highly disruptive for everything. And when you look at detoxification, just to connect even more the dots, because a lot of people are asking me why I have this low bile production, why it seems to be that I'm challenged so much for digesting or emulsifying fats, or why I'm getting all these digestive symptoms if I'm trying to eat and do the right thing. Well, if you have a high levels of lipopolysaccharides, which is pretty common, unfortunately, they will create cholestasis. They will block or at least alter to a certain level the flow of bile throughout the biliary tree. That impairs emulsification of fats at one point on one side. Also, you are not detoxifying properly because your bile flow is impaired. All these receptors you need to activate. There's kind of like a gate system that we have where you activate certain receptors and they will say, okay, now you keep going, please. It's like literally trying to cross the border. Like you get a guy there who will tell you, papers, please. And if you have them, you can keep going. Well, at least that's what it should be.
Maybe not anymore, but
coming from a Chilean immigrant, this comment, by the way. And the thing is that we need to get those receptors activated in order to keep the flow going. Now, if you don't get the activation of those receptors, the flow is halted, and then in some cases it's even reversed. So now you start sending toxins back to your circulatory system. A reverse directionality in your bile flow, which creates systemic inflammation due to that impairment. Other people that are challenged to excrete toxins through the kidneys or their stool pathways, elimination pathways, and because they're constipated or because their kidneys are not working properly. By the way, one of the biggest insults for the kidney function is glyphosate. So no wonder why people are getting challenged by excreting toxins now, because we're damaging the nephrons in the kidneys pretty dramatically. Actually, there's a lowering on the age of kidney failure, which has been huge. Like
I don't think a lot of people may not be aware that glyphosate is a dehydrator, so it dehydrates. So in plants, actually, somebody sent me a paper today. Don Huber sent me a paper this morning of research showing that the Roundup Ready soybeans that they use the glyphosate on uses twice as much water because the glyphosate is dehydrating. So, there's no reason to argue that it would not have the same dehydrating effects in our body. And that's, part of what I looked at with Parkinson's for a long time was, this connection with glyphosate and how that might be impairing the microbiome. And I actually just spoke with someone this morning who is doing research in Parkinson's and neurological issues related to bile. So, which is, another interesting piece of the puzzle. And then, I got very interested in lipopolysaccharide because there's an LPS model of Parkinson's, there's an LPS diabetes model, there's an LPS depression model. You could go to PubMed and you could probably find an LPS model to study that induces all kinds of disease. And they also, just in cell models, they use endotoxin to cause inflammation in the cellular model. And so that for me was like a big it was kind of a big aha. And then it was something that I wanted to measure in our clinical trial, which I think I talked to you about, but I'm not sure if I did. We did both microbiome testing and blood testing. And the people who took Sugar Shift actually had a near almost 100% reduction in serum LPS over the period of time, 90 days. And the microbiome also, all the components of the lipid A and the lipopolysaccharide tails were all substantially reduced by Sugar Shift, because it changes the terrain back to an anaerobic environment that is not that amenable to those bugs, but it's a better environment for, things like bifidobacteria and Akkermansia and Rosburian fecali bacteria. So you start to get back some of the as that help you out. But
yep, that's huge actually, because again, lipopolysaccharide has been recognized as the most significant driver of disease, chronic diseases, like when it's elevated. And honestly, it's one of the most challenging factors for detoxification. So when I speak about detoxification, people ask me, well, we have to do this first, and then we start fixing or helping the microbiome. And I always say, no, you have to do both, because your microbiome needs support through the process of detoxification. And if you're not supporting that, then the balance of your microbiome can drive more toxicity, and it will challenge the efficiency of the support, the products that are being used for supporting detoxification at the same time. So you have a synergistic approach there. You need to use both at the same time. I think there's enough support with great companies like Martha's company out there to get things done properly on the microbiome side. What I realized, it was not so much support for detoxification, because first, we have too much toxins, and people need to know first what toxins are getting exposed, which toxins are getting exposed to on a daily basis, two, what these toxins are doing in their bodies, and three, where these toxins are coming from. And that information comes first with testing.
So that leads to my next question for you, because I think that's one of the kind of main gaps that you're looking to fill is that, when we try to look for some of these things, of course, I started a science company before I started a probiotics company. And so, I soon figured out, there's places you can get just about anything tested, but there's not a simple place for an average citizen to go get something tested. And so there were like these big gaps in trying to find a place where you could actually get yourself tested for what am I exposed to, And so I think that's also something you realized that you're looking to kind of fill that gap. So maybe just talk a little bit about that, and then maybe we'll let people raise their hand and ask some questions, because we have a very active group here that likes to ask questions.
So what you want, I know personally, Christopher Shade, by the way. Great guy. Love him. We'll talk about, I'm not going to talk about him or his company. I do think that he has great products, though. I like what he's done. It's very diversified right now. It's not testing really too much. He has a really good heavy metal testing available, which I've used, and I think it's a really good resource for people who are trying to get more specific answers on the heavy metal side. But here's the issue. First and foremost, heavy metal testing, for example, huge. Is all that we need to know? 100% no. We need to know more than that. We can't really say which group of toxins are affecting you the most, or it could be a combination at the same time. So there's no choosing and picking. But it became a trending thing because it was so expensive to get tested for all of these different toxins. Because if you bundle them, and any company that is out there, you will have to spend approximately over $600 or more. I will say close to $700 for the vast majority of the companies there. Or they will give you only a fraction of the toxins that you possibly can get exposed to. So there's great companies that are testing for mycotoxins, for example, but that's it. Other companies will test you for heavy metals, as Quicksilver Scientifics is one of them. Great testing. There's only one part. And all these parts, if we start combining them from different companies or with one company, it will give you a huge bill at the end of the day. So I didn't like that. Never liked that. I want everyone to get tested and know with a full comprehensive vision what they're getting exposed to. So when we put together the lab, and this was a huge journey for me because I'm not a chemist or any specialized person in the technical aspects of testing, but I became pretty knowledgeable over the past years. We decided what are we going to be testing for. I told them everything. What about everything? Well, I want PFASs, I want plastics, I want all the other environmental toxins, including organophosphates, phthalates, all the things that are coming in cosmetic products. I want all the heavy metals, and I want the mycotoxins. I was like, but there's no method that has been developed to test for everything in full in a way that can be reproduced on a commercial level. Because this will take a long time, a lot of effort. So I said, well, we need to do this. And we did it. Now we have, right now, the most comprehensive testing, more than 110 ions detected. Ions are equal to toxins, 110 toxins from the three main categories, including PFASs, which is a huge thing. It's a huge deal. PFASs are like the most sticky, like a Velcro for this equipment. They stick to everything. Testing for them, I know it's technical. It's such a pain in the neck. We did it. We put all this together. We have a specialized one LCMS equipment, which costs $750,000, is fully dedicated only for testing PFASs and plastics. That's how important they are. So now we have all that offered, and it's a simple urine sample, and people discuss, but urine is not the best way for testing, or is not 100% accurate. Can talk about that, but there's always haters. Your blood work is not 100% accurate. Your glucose level is not perfectly accurate. They're
all separated systems in the body, and they're separating out stuff. You
want the major one.
Your urine is getting rid of the waste. Your blood's a saltwater system. So
you want to have at least a good representation of what's coming out from one of the major pathways, because I can't collect sweat, and stool sample analysis gets so blended with other things that it's super hard to identify molecules there. So the only way we can analyze things properly, well, people will say blood. Most of the toxins, they don't stay in the blood for more than 2 hours.
I'm in the middle of a call.
Oh, sorry. Eva, call here. Let me.
Okay, Eva, don't worry. You finish your call, and then we.
Unmute her. I muted her.
That's fine. And then hair could be representative, but only for certain types of molecules, not for everything. Heavy metals, yeah, you have a lot of things you can find there, but they're not the full picture either. So we chose urine, and we came with a price of below $400 for the whole thing. Like $390, I think is the starting price. And we don't have anything extra. We don't have any add-ons. You get the whole thing right away. No, like bundle this with this, or get only this. I don't want people to choose, and this is really impulsive. I apologize in advance, because I want always people to decide what they want. But in this case, why I don't want to offer separate testings, because I don't want you to miss one piece of the puzzle that could be critical to understand what's going on. And if I give you that option, you might lose the track of seeing things with the full spectrum. And so I want you to see what I would recommend to every person I love and care for. I would recommend get the whole thing done right away. Don't choose and pick only one fraction of the whole toxins system that you're getting exposed to. So what we did is, okay, how we make this happen that we don't compromise the testing? Well, just lowering the pricing. Get it
Right.
to a price point that is affordable enough that most people will be able to pay for it and get everything tested right away. So that was the initial intention.
Right.
And we have right now, I'm making these claims, and of course I'm biased, but it was a huge effort. So I'm really proud to say this. We got the best sensitivity in the market. We have the lowest detection level possible, and we're aiming for more, actually.
What's your detection level for glyphosate? Do you have are you testing organophosphates in total, or are you testing?
No, we're detecting for glyphosate. That's a good question, actually. I need to check the charts. I think it's 0.5 micrograms, but I need to double check that. But it's within the lowest you can get, because the glyphosate. I will tell you a whole story about glyphosate separately, Martha, but that was a challenging one. It was messing up with the peaks in the system so much.
Yeah,
it took me a couple of weeks to get it right. Was complicated.
It's
sneaky.
Yeah,
It's a sneaky. I'm not going to say the second word, but
yeah, it's a sneaky molecule.
Yeah, it's a sneaky molecule.
In many ways, it is.
Yeah, and
so you're launching probably in May, sometime in May. Somebody was asking.
May 5th, we go live.
And what's the name of your company?
Okay, let me share something with you, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I mean, you're always just Dr. Haroldo to me, so I like never think about it.
You know that the doctor is something that I appreciate, but I don't personally like that much, because it creates distance, and I don't like distance with people. I like to connect with people. Do you see my screen here?
Yep.
Okay. Maybe you will see it better now.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the company called DetoxU, and I will show you. This is our testing kit. And then we have some products. So our testing kit is it's a very simple urine sample analysis. You take it, you collect it once, only once. I do recommend in the morning, first time in the morning, but honestly, it could be taken any time of the day. And then we offer solutions. So we have first a general detox protocol that will be a basic approach for a person that wants to become proactive and help with the detoxification process. When it doesn't know what type of toxins might be affecting that person the most. But if I want to be, okay, I want to be proactive. I didn't get tested. I don't care. Maybe, I don't know. It's an option always. Yeah, I got tested before. I don't know exactly what was there, but I would just want to run some detox on my body. Well, we have the general detox, and that has two products. One is the binder, which is a time-release capsule system that hits the duodenum where things are usually flushed and through the biliary tree, and the remover, which is a blend of botanicals. We have a lot of things there. We have dandelion root, we have gentian, we have turmeric, burdock. I can talk about all these ingredients individually, but the blend we made it for supporting every step of the phases of detox at the liver cell level, at the hepatocyte, and also for improving elimination at the kidney level. So it has a mild diuretic effect and also some healing properties for the nephrons from the main structure of your kidneys. And then we also thought, okay, but the cell needs to be supported because there's a lot of oxidative stress when you're detoxifying more intensively. So, okay, we created something that is a proprietary blend that is called the cellular detox matrix blend, which supports actively that part of the process. So we're promoting better or more optimal processing of toxins within the cells, especially liver cells. We're also helping the kidneys for removing those toxins better, and we're supporting the cellular pathways for improving the effect of detoxification without or preventing further damage to those cells. And then we bind them with this comprehensive binding formula. So we have all these different minerals that they have these binding properties for different types of toxins. And we added also some aloe there for soothing the gut, and also Chilajit, which is standardized to 50% fulvic acid. And that's huge for arsenic and aluminum. That is one of the best ways for binding those things. But then, you want to say something, Martha? Sorry.
No, I was just commenting on the Shilajit.
What do you want to say?
It's a mineral pitch from, I mean, it's actually from ancient microbes.
Yes.
Like the breakdown of like very old plant tissue and minerals in the rock formation. Yes.
Yeah. It's fantastic. And then you get the add-ons. So now you got tested, or you were tested with other company. It's great. I'm really all about you knowing what you have. And let's say you got tested with us or someone else, and then you know that your biggest issue right now, it might be mold, the related toxins. So we have a mold focused product. What we did there, we put together a proprietary blend of botanicals that are more intentional for supporting mold overgrowth and also mycotoxin detoxification. And the same for heavy metals, and the same for environmental or industrial pollutants. We have heavy metal focus, which is also a very specific formula for helping binding and eliminating and shaking out of the cells and out of the tissues all these heavy metals. A lot of people are criticizing cilantro and chlorella because they call them weak binders. Yes, I agree. If you use them by themselves without the proper binder protocol, you might get some Hertz reactions and probably even some risk factors. But if you use this in combination with the proper support in the binding side, then you have the perfect blend. Because cilantro shakes the cells, that shakes the ECM, the extracellular matrix, to remove these toxins out of the system. And then you dump them into your digestive system or your urinary system. And now you, with the proper binding element, you're able to eliminate them out of the body and prevent the reabsorption. And then for the industrial focus, we use all these beautiful botanicals that we know they're preventing the damaging elements, especially from pesticides and herbicides. And they also improve digestive function, which we know gets impaired when you are exposed to a lot of these industrial chemicals. And all of these products are also combined with the cellular detox matrix blend. So you get the cellular detox matrix blend in the main detox formula, but also it's added in every single product that is used as an add-on. So if you get tested, when you get tested, you will see what's going on there. And I've been working, I worked for a long time to develop an algorithm. So you don't need to figure this out yourself. Yeah. You will get a recommendation for a focus protocol of detoxification that you can follow for 6 months with the proper add-on that was recognized as the most needed based on your analysis. So it's simple enough that anyone can use it. It's safe enough because we're using botanicals that are naturally derived, that they have an innate intelligence for improving the detoxification pathways of the body. But it's still comprehensive and potent enough to get the work done. So we expect to see a great reduction after 6 months of the protocol. And then we will encourage you, and actually we'll give you a discount so you can get tested again and see the comparison of the initial analysis and the new one after 6 months of the protocol. And you will see actually in the same report the both where you were before and where you are now for each category with each type of toxin that you were measured before. So that is huge. And
so let's say somebody gets tested and they have a certain amount of industrial chemicals or whatever that is, and they're trying to kind of discern where their exposures are. Do you provide resources or information for people to kind of pick apart, okay, what in my lifestyle am I being exposed to? The reason partly why I'm asking this. So years ago, John and I did heavy metals testing, and we also did a bunch of chemicals testing for John through, I think it was Genova or one of those companies. And, of course, we're looking at all these chemicals that were in his samples. And then both of us were looking at our heavy metals tests, and we had a lot of lead. And we're trying to figure out, okay, like, where is that lead coming from? Well, it could have come from our childhood, growing up in the 60s and 70s in lead painted homes and things like that. But we went through a chelation protocol and the lead didn't go down at all. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we're still exposed to it. So I asked that question because, like, people don't always know, okay, I know I'm getting exposed to herbicides and pesticides in my food supply, but these other chemicals, like, how do I figure out what in my house that I need to get rid of? And I think that's one of people's bigger challenges, is figuring out, okay, what's the source of my problem?
Yeah. Oh, I was initially all about that. So we knew that we needed to bring information. I believe that information can be tremendously profound and powerful for making the right changes in people's lives. And so you will have access within the website. And when you look at your report, you will get an expanded amount of information of each of the pollutants that were found in your sample, with explanations of where they might be potentially coming from. And then we will be talking about strategies for avoiding them. And this is something that comes with our continuous educational program that we will be putting together. So probably me or someone else from the company will be expanding information every week on the on this part of the educational side.
Yeah.
We'll let you know, okay, you got arsenic. Well, this is arsenic. This is what it does. This is how it's being used right now. This is where you could potentially find it. And this is the best strategy to avoid it. Unfortunately, we can only avoid as much as
Right. Well,
as-
like we lived in Colorado, and
yeah.
the Western water supplies have a lot of heavy metals
Yes.
naturally. Yes. So unless, if you aren't filtering your water and you live out west, you're probably exposed to a high level of heavy metals and, frankly, probably radioactive, in Colorado, radioactive isotopes from Rocky Mountain, the bomb factory out there. But
I found it. Yeah. That was huge, Martha. I that was my early stages on terms of testing, because I had a couple of patients there that their hair was falling dramatically, and we're talking about 9-year-old kids. And I got them tested with whatever I had at that time, and I found huge amounts of uranium. Huge amounts. That was like one of the most probably important moments in my realization that toxins were getting in the way. And yes, it's supposed to be obvious, like, yeah, toxins are bad for you, but you never really understand the full extent of how bad they can be for you.
Or how
And
much you're exposed to them.
exactly.
Because
And
like if you're a super nerd like me who's been trying to figure out Parkinson's for 23 years, I mean, I've studied a lot of the different toxins. And of course, they use toxins in some of the animal models to induce Parkinson's. But,
yeah.
if you go into basically the neurobiology of heavy metals, most of those heavy metals have neurotoxicity. And, that's been well known for a long time, but nobody ever sends a Parkinson's person to a toxicologist. It's, it's one of my beefs with the whole medical system is, we have separated the body into its parts, separated the doctors into the specialists, separated the human, from the larger parts of themselves and their understanding. And then it's like this guy over here, well, if it's not in my field, he's not going to really, not going to think outside of his circle. So, and in traditional medicine, you're not getting a lot of people who talk about toxin load. I mean, where you find it is, people who either, took the traditional medical path and then said, oh, either had a personal issue or had patients they couldn't help and started looking at being a naturopath or a homeopath, or started returning back to looking at the whole system and the whole person. And they're the people who I see, starting to understand these connections and looking at toxic load. And, Jill Carnahan was one of the first people who really started looking at mold because of her own problems.
And she was in Colorado. Yeah.
She was in Colorado. But, Colorado has a very heavy toxin burden. So anyway, I do have a couple of questions. There's probably some more, but are you ready for questions?
Yeah. By the way, that QR code there, if you scan it, you can get access to our early.
It didn't work for me. I tried to scan it and it didn't work. No.
Let me send you another one. Let me see if I can.
It worked for me.
Did it work for you? It might be my camera might be dirty.
It worked for me too. I signed up already for it's
Great.
signed up for
Okay.
early notice.
So we'll send you some cool info and maybe some other exciting things in our early access. Yeah. Just use it. If you need it one more time, let me know. But yeah, I'm ready for questions.
Send me that little info stuff that you gave me for the people who didn't come tonight. I'll attach that with the recording also.
Yeah, great. Yeah, of course. And you can also write to info@detoxu.com if you want to know anything specifically about what we're going to be doing, or if you want to get any information in the early release, because we're going to have a soft launch on the 5th. So we want to prioritize whoever attended these meetings and give them a little extra for their initial preference. So yeah, let me know and send us a message or connect with the email, and we'll get back to you.
Okay. Great. Okay, so we have Debbie Burnish.
Yep.
Debbie, you want to ask your question?
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. I was interested, so I've listened to everything, and so my grandchildren are screaming in the background in case you can't hear. So I think this is something I'd like to do, but I have a question. Are you doing anything for people that are undergoing chemotherapy? Because it seems like the oncologists don't know anything about nutrition, and they don't have a clue about helping people detox. So is this something I can suggest to my friend who's now had her 4th round of ovarian cancer?
Okay, so unfortunately, when you're using chemotherapy, you're putting a toxin there.
Right.
Period. So there's an intentional approach to kill cells using a very harsh toxin. Therefore, a few things will happen. Or you will increase your toxicological burden. Also, you will be overwhelming your cellular pathways. That's why the hair falls and other side effects occur, because your body can't keep up because of the toxicity created. I will say that you can test at any given time of your life. That doesn't matter what you're undergoing right now, or you don't have to wait for the perfect timing to get tested. But the value of the information can vary depending on the circumstances. So if you're getting highly exposed to something, and you know you're getting exposed to that, those type of things, there will be obvious impairments. And the same with the microbiome. Like, you will know that the microbiome will get imbalanced. So I typically will say, if you're going to get tested, fine. But if you won't be able to become proactive because of the therapy or whatever is going on in your life at this point, maybe hold on a little bit to wait until the time is right, and then become more proactive. But yes, detoxification is not acknowledged by the traditional medicine approach. Toxins are not killing anyone or affecting anyone's health, according to them, except for maybe lead, because it's so obvious, it's hidden in their faces, and you can't really dismiss that information. But besides that, there's no acknowledgement that toxins are affecting health people.
Which is kind of crazy about endotoxin, because like endotoxin is one of the things that gets you in sepsis. So
hers specifically, she's not doing chemotherapy. She's moved now to immunotherapy, and she's doing, I think, fenbenzidol and that protocol. If you've heard of that, the Joe Tippins protocol.
Yeah. So you can, that will be probably a good time to know where you are right now. But I'm always cautious about the overlapping between medical therapies and anything else, because what happens is that if something goes wrong,
who do you blame?
who
Okay.
you blame?
And so, okay,
we can get blamed.
No. And then what about do you have a suggestion for a binder that would help her get rid of the chemo now that she's moved on to immunotherapy and the fenbenzidol?
Not specifically, but I always say that there's some things that can never hurt when it comes to supporting your detoxification pathways. Antioxidants, the polyphenols are amazing for helping people's cellular protection. They upregulate NRF2, which is great for mobilizing things. And specifically binders, no, I can't give you one. I mean, the most common one used is activated charcoal for especially some pharmaceutical related exposures, but not, I can't give like more specific recommendations about that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
From my end, but I will say that first, test and see where you are, what's going on, what's happening that in your body right now, what you're getting exposed to, what is circulating inside. That will give you more clues about becoming more specific about what you need.
Okay, and then
that's always a good idea.
Okay, so I heard the polyphenols and the activated charcoal, and what was in between?
No, I said that. Sorry, I mentioned that polyphenols, it's a group of molecules that they have upregulating benefits on something called the NRF2 pathway, which is the most important pathway that when gets upregulated, you increase the production of something called AREs, or antioxidant response elements, which are produced inside the cells and then protecting your cells from any oxidative stress or any oxidative damage. So we know that a lot of oxidative damage is created by various of these chemical or pharmaceutical therapies. So the upregulation of that pathway actually helps preventing further damage into the cells affected by the exposure. Well, that's one of the very simple thing that comes to my mind. But again, I'm not against any medical advice or any medical therapy that is being proposed, and always take more cautious steps for taking action in any way when there's some medical treatment involved in the process. But for testing, there's no restrictions whatsoever.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. Karen Morgan.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. It's a little overwhelming, so part of me is just like, I really want to run screaming from the room. But I guess I have a couple of questions. One, where does infrared sauna fit in terms of a way to achieve some level of detoxification without, without going through this?
I hear a lot of that. So there's a couple of things about infrared saunas. Infrared saunas are working in something called electron transport chain, which is a third step of energy production within the cell. The optimization of that increases the performance in terms of the metabolic pathways related to detoxification itself, and also it improves the elimination of toxic substances by mobilizing things out of the cellular matrix. I don't know if you heard about that, but there's some intricate communication channel system that we have connecting every cell of the body that is called the ECM, or the extracellular matrix. And this is a system that has like a gel type of fluid that becomes more solid when it's exposed to certain disruptive elements, including toxins. And it becomes more fluid when you have the proper nutrients incorporated in your body. So, like example, vitamin C, we know is a huge opening nutrient for the ACM to become more fluid and mobilize things out. And so other polyphenols and antioxidants and some bitters actually do the same, etc. So infrared sauna can actually open those channels at the same time and improve the elimination of toxic waste out of the cells, out of the cytoplasma of the cell, and dump those into the extracellular matrix so they can be mobilized outside the body at the end of the day. So that is one of the main benefits. It can have some hermetic effect, so you always have to be cautious about how long, how frequent you're using infrared sauna. It can give you a lot of benefits, but also it can make you feel really crappy. And so we need to find that sweet spot in between. I typically recommend using that 3 times a week, that therapy with a good quality infrared brand, and that should be used for not longer than 30 minutes each per session. But some people will be just fine with 10 minutes or 15. So we always need to try and go from less to more, because benefits are usually given by your personal approach to all these therapies, not by whatever it says in the manual or is being recommended in the podcast. You need to find your own place where you get the benefits without aggravating anything. But with that, with the proper hydration, proper incorporation of minerals, and all the other things that you can do on the side, infrared light therapy could be extremely beneficial for improving your cell functioning and also detoxification on the side.
Okay, thank you. Let me one more question. So I'm a member of Dr. Davis's group, and he, is very concerned about the proliferation of SIBO. But his approach is that just assume you have SIBO, unless you prove otherwise, you're probably not going to be able to prove otherwise. So just assume you have it and just go straight to treating SIBO. So what I'm wondering is, given what you've said, does it make sense to just presume? I don't know how anybody getting to 2025 wasn't exposed to every single toxin known to man, frankly, except for maybe some radioactive stuff. But generally what you're talking about, it's like, it's all there, it's everywhere. So should you just move straight to treatment and not worry about testing, because just presume that you've already got toxic overload?
Oh, I had that question myself. Do we need to test? If we assume that everyone is exposed to toxins and might have a high toxic burden to begin with, well, the answer is yes, we need to test for various reasons. First and foremost, active support for the natural detoxification process needs to be used with a certain caution. Not that it's going to be bad for you per se, but you don't want to stay with using binders forever or for too long. And you want to also give a break to your body in terms of what you're pushing to be done with a more focused approach. But the most important part that is usually missed, unfortunately, on integrative medicine, and that where allopathic medicine they're so into, well, because they have insurance that covers all these things, is testing. And I come from a very traditional medicine training, and the first thing I did for every single person I saw on my practice was testing. Without moving a finger, I will get them tested for whatever I thought was necessary at that point after my initial analysis. So it happens that you need to establish a baseline. You need to know where you're starting to understand if you're getting benefits from what you're doing. So you want to establish a clear baseline, then move forward with any protocol that resonates with you, that makes sense to you, with your lifestyle, with your preferences, with your choices. And then after a certain time, retesting. So now you have comparison. And now you know, yes, this is working for me. This is something I will stick with for a little bit longer, or it didn't move the needle. Maybe I have to change the approach, or I might be done. Everything worked perfectly, and I can finish all this for now and maybe resume or get tested in a year from now and see what I am. You can't get that done without testing initially.
I see. Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure. And I will say one more thing. If you want to do proper avoidance, you need to know what type of foes you're fighting. And that comes with also the testing part.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure.
Norma Jean, you're on mute.
Usually doesn't help.
Okay, I'm moving on to Mary Ramos, and I'll come back to you, Norma Jean.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Mary.
So I have SIBO, and I'm about to start. I just ordered the herbal antibiotics from Amazon just now. I had tried Dr. Davis's way of doing things with the yogurt, but that didn't work. I have a lot of issues with my liver and bile and bile malabsorption. I'm having a lot of abdominal pain anyway, I wanted to find out from you whether is it wise for me to start this herbal treatment say instead of maybe doing your detox program first? I mean, I know my SIBO is really bad.
I'm very first let me tell you something. This has been always the same for me. I'm very conscious about grabbing all the necessary information before even recommending one
We're
thing.
not asking Haroldo to make medical recommendations on this phone call. So, you need to be mindful of that. If that's what we're asking, we can't ask him to make
Right,
medical
right.
recommendations.
It's hard for me. And honestly, it's not even responsible on my end.
He doesn't have all the facts.
Right. I just don't want to do the herbal and cause more damage if I should do the detox first.
I will
Get
tell you,
pathways open
yeah,
first.
I will tell you generally what happens with SIBO, in my perspective, and
Okay.
this can be completely arguable. So, but I've been a consultant for microbiome analysis for a long time, years. I've seen 4,000 microbiome analysis in my life, or maybe more, but I will say at the very least. So you will see the casuistic I have that I've been seeing with my own eyes over the years. It's pretty big. And I can tell you with a lot of responsibility from my own research and my own clinical evidence, SIBO is not a microbial problem. And there's no solution by killing microbes from my standpoint. This is generally speaking. Why I'm saying this?
It's a terrain problem.
It's a terrain problem.
Thank you, Martha.
And I will give you why. I'll tell you the facts why I believe this. This is the way I'm saying it is. We're a big petri dish. We're just a very complex petri dish. And in the petri dish, you put some microbes and you put the food and you set up the temperature and you will set up the pH and you put it in an incubator and you expect 24 hours after or sometime after to get something grown there. What you will grow will be relying on those environmental settings. If you don't provide the settings for that microbe that you were expecting to grow on that petri dish, it won't grow. No matter how many microbes you're putting initially, it won't grow. I know this. I grew up in the microbiology lab, to be honest. My mom, she's a microbiologist. So I know this for a fact. And if you get a contamination or something, yeah, that might affect things, but most of the times you need the right settings. Why you get an overgrowth, let's say for a minute that's true, in your small bowel, which we call small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. You get that because the things that are managing the settings in your small bowel are off. What you have there that is predominant, first and foremost, you're dumping the content of the stomach, which to be managed properly, you need enough stomach acid production to become efficient. If not, you're going to get meat fibers and vegetable fibers and a lot of things in the mix. Second of all, you need proper enzymatic production coming from the microbiome. We have less concentration, less CFUs per deciliter in the small bowel, but still we have a presence of microbes there normally. And you need pancreatic enzymes. Mm-hmm. Both of them stimulated by multiple physiological pathways. Third, you need bile. The biliary tree needs to be stimulated properly. Bile is the main managing agent for controlling microbial overgrowth and gets hugely impaired by toxicity issues. Mm. Now, with all these elements, I can elaborate more and more things, but I will say those are the primary ones. If they're working properly, there's no way you can get SIBO.
Well, nothing's working properly.
If those are not working properly, you will extend the time of your foods inside your small bowel beyond the 12-hour time frame, which leads you to a logarithmic growth rate that goes beyond the 10 elevated to the 5 CFUs per deciliter in that area of your bowels. Now you're getting the overgrowth, and now you start fermenting in an area that is not meant to be fermentative by definition. Now, the other thing I found very interesting is that we eat very complex foods, and we combine them pretty poorly, which is not something you will see in Japan or Asia or India or other countries. They're very strict in the things that they're eating at a time and the order they eat things at a time. Now, imagine you're putting first, and you have deficiencies in your digestive pathways. Now you're putting first your meats, and then you add your veggies, and then you add some starches there, and then you're like, this is like, these things are getting dumped layer and get clogged. So the things are getting first are being managed, but they're not properly managed. So the other ones are getting stuck there at the same time. Because the time is getting extended, now they're getting fermented. So you're getting bacteria there. They're not supposed to be fermenting things in that place. And you're getting other things stuck there that are supposed to be absorbed better and rapidly. So now they're also getting fermented, and you get all this gas production in excessive amounts. Now you're feeling all the symptoms or pressure, pain, and dysfunction because of that reason. I always say that if you want to get one thing done without any single supplement, and Martha, I'm sorry for saying this, but I'm actually backstabbing by saying this. No, I'm joking. But if you want to get one thing done before getting a single supplement in your protocol, it's simple. One type of food at a time.
Oh, I'm doing that. I'm eating only meat.
And smaller. And so if you eat, but you can't eat only meat, because you're depriving from foods to 70% of the total amount of microbes you have in your microbiome. That's a trillion guys that are starving to death if you eat only meat. That carnivore diets are nonsense by definition. And so I'm sorry for this. And I love all people, no matter what they decide to eat in their lives, but we need to be we need to understand that our microbiome needs fibers. They need complex carbs to survive. Yes, you can survive in meats for a certain amount of time, but I will bet if you test your microbiome 2 years down the road with a strict carnivore diet, your microbiome is going to be completely depleted. It's going to be loaded with bacteroides. It's going to be hugely increased in the gram-negative profile. You're going to have a lot of lipopolysaccharide production, and a lot of metabolites are going to be way off. Polyamines and a lot of different pro-inflammatory microbes. You're going to have a huge amount of follicular colon vulgaris, which is a propionate producer. In small amounts is fine. In large amounts is highly inflammatory. Mycobacterium provenici is going to be on the top of the chart off, and that also leads to a lot of autoimmune issues. And that all comes from the compensation coming from the microbiome when it's eating only a certain type of foods for a long time. We were seasonal people. We're seasonal beings. We eat a lot of foods in the summer that are related to fibers and fructose and all these beautiful nutrients. And then in the wintertime, probably we ate more meat. And we were, but the only thing I think we missed with the overabundance we have right now in the supermarkets is that we were eating just one thing at a time. We're not eating steak with potatoes and veggies and fruit and ice cream and what else, and sauces on the top, all blended all together. That was a king, a royalty food that they will eat on a unfrequent basis. That was for feasts, for activities, once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
The regular meal for a normal person for hundreds of years was based on 2, maybe 3 different groups of foods, types of nutrients, if anything, and that's it.
Great. I mean, I've only been carnivore for 5 months, and I've done it because I wasn't digesting foods. I wasn't digesting the vegetables. They were coming out, forget it. I was horrible. So I just eliminated.
Use tools like, for example, supplementation. I'm not recommending this, but tools like supplementing with prokinetics or natural prokinetics, bitters. Sometimes enzymes and other things can help. Now, but now coming to the detoxification part, you might have a blocking agent or more than one, and that can come in forms of toxins. The other thing I notice a lot for SIBO, I know a lot of you are probably concerned about this, the way you breathe. If you're snoring or you're not breathing by your nose, it's going to affect completely the way your digestive process goes. That's a huge piece of the puzzle.
And We did talk about that a few weeks ago on our,
Oh, yes.
because we talked about Nestor's book, but I
Hmm.
forgot. That's the one I didn't get recorded. So,
Oh,
Oh, that's nice.
yeah.
yeah. So I should do the testing and then try to do the other stuff?
It's up to you, but I would recommend getting tested because, look, I think
That-
everyone in the world should be tested for toxins
Okay.
and see where they are.
Well, so I'm here. Here's kind of one of my general thoughts, because I do have a lot of people from Dr. Davis's group and with the deeper understanding of the SIBO and his protocols. You know, what I will say is the vast majority of the work that he does to help people feel better is changing the terrain. It's very much focused on diet, and he's not a strict carnivore guy, but it's very much focused on the diet and changing the environment to address the SIBO. So I will say that, but you know, what I will also say is there are a handful of people from that group who've been coming here for a while, and they're stuck at a plateau, either not being able to deal with the SIBO or not being able to deal with the weight or not being able to deal with something. And so to me, the logic is that potentially, like, getting tested for the toxins and understanding what's there, that may be that one thing that has been holding you back from making that next kind of leap in your progression.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll move on to Kara.
Yeah. And I unfortunately only have like 10 minutes more, so hopefully I can move faster with questions. But
Yeah.
no, time
your-
flies.
Make your
We're good.
questions fast and make your answers faster.
Yeah, I will make my answers faster.
Okay, should I say something now?
Yes.
Yes, sure.
Oh, okay. I have a couple questions. One is, as far as parasites, does your urine test for those? And if you, like, I'm about to do a parasite cleanse, and it has binders and everything in it, and you're supposed to do it from like 1 to 3 months. But is it more important to detox first from parasites or things like metals? Do you have to take a break in between all that?
So, no, I don't test for parasites. That's a different type of testing. Usually it's full metagenomic analysis. PCR can also be useful for parasite testing, but it's not the technology we use. We use detection of carbon chain molecules. That's what I always say. That's ions that are recognized as toxins. So that's one thing. And the regarding parasite detox, honestly, it's usually a harsh antimicrobial / binder tip.
We lost you.
He froze for a moment.
Oh, okay.
Well, while we're waiting for him, oh, there he is.
I blocked. So where
Yeah.
I left, so the binder part, did you hear that? No.
No.
Go back. So I'm sorry, I froze for a second. So I was saying that there might be some overlaps between the parasite protocol and our products, but doesn't, again, first and foremost, doesn't hurt testing. A lot of the heavy metals we get exposed to and other toxins can drive overgrowth of parasites inside the body. So it will be something that I will be very interested to know, especially if I'm beginning a parasite detox or a cleanser, anything that you're doing on that side. Because, and also, there's no really a contraindication of using a detoxification support alongside with the parasite cleans. There might be, again, some overlap between some of the ingredients, but I don't think it's going to be that big. I don't know what protocol you're using, but standardly, I will say that there's not going to be a huge overlap that you won't be able to make them compatible to be used at the same time. Of course, you need the specific information to see the daily recommended dosages for some ingredients, but most of the times should be fine. But definitely testing, it's a great way for understanding what might be driving parasite overgrowth in your body.
Okay. And I have another question too regarding I take probiotics and I try to do fermented foods, but every time I try to do the fermentation, I have really high histamine issues, and so I just give up and I don't do the fermentation anymore. Is there a recommendation what I could do about that or why that's happening?
Well, you're fermenting. I can tell you that. It's just some uh, fermented foods. They can be they can drive a little bit more histamine reactions. There's a few things. There are some bacteria, especially some bacteria related to the not. This is actually counterintuitive, but they're more related to fat fermentation that are also releasing more histamine, like Bacteroides fragilis. This is a huge driver of histamine imbalances. And those are more fat-loving types of bacteria. So usually relate that to a liver issue in many cases. Now, the other thing is that we have the Western mindset for fermented foods. If you look at the Buddhist temples, how they eat those fermented foods, tiny amounts. What we got here, half a liter of kombucha. Nobody handles that. That's too much. So fermented foods can give you benefits, but like everything else, with moderation. So when you want to incorporate them, I always say like maybe a tablespoon sometimes is going to be just enough. You don't need more.
Oh,
So go small. Like when people recommend fermented foods, they forget to mention how much. So we go to the standards of the industry, the food industry, not to the actual health standards we should be following.
Just a forkful
okay.
is all you need. You know, a bite.
Okay.
It's in the spectrum. I used to use the juice of the sauerkraut, like the brine. That's it. A little bit, a teaspoon of that, and they were getting better. You don't need to go super hard on those foods, but if you have some overgrowth of those type of organisms, they might drive more histamine imbalances.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Mary Medicus. Okay, we got to get really fast on these last ones because he's got to get out of here.
Mine's going to be quick and it's meant to be very broad. I don't need a personal diagnosis. We have a traditional sauna. I don't really use it very often. My husband loves it. How do you feel about that? Because you addressed infrared sauna and we have traditional for detox.
Being married to a Russian woman, that they love those Russian banyas and saunas. I got introduced to them late in my life, and I think they are a game changer for the improvement of elimination of many heavy metals. And there's, after I got curious about this, there's consistent research and data available about the fact that traditional saunas are able to remove heavy metals more efficiently than many of the therapies out there. So up to a personal tolerance level, so of course that's individual, I do recommend using them on a regular basis. I
So
think it works.
like how many times a week and what's a good temperature range if you can tolerate it?
The temperature range varies, so I won't comment on that. That's typically
Like
up to your
170 is good, 175?
yeah. I mean, that's a good starting point.
Oh, you go on up.
That depends, and also depends if it's dry sauna or steam sauna. That changes the equation a little bit. So you don't go that high on the steam sauna, but you can go a little bit higher in the dry sauna.
Do it dry.
Okay, and yeah, you can go a little bit higher in the temperature, but I would not recommend that at the beginning. That depends again on the tolerance level. Not more than 15 minutes is usually the sweet spot for using any sauna. I would say anything between 10 and 15 minutes is fine. More than that, I believe is risky. And with proper hydration, which is supposed to be done right after a good shower to remove those toxins you were flushing out.
Oh.
You need to go to the shower right away, like after the sauna. It doesn't. If not, those things are going to sit in your skin, and you can get them back. This is a two-way, bi-directional route. And third, I've seen a lot of improvements when you're using a binder in conjunction with these type of therapies. So I like to put a binder 30 minutes before, get into the sauna, and then I get into the sauna. I double the benefits of the sauna.
So how many times a week?
That depends, honestly. There's no recipe for
No
that.
recipe?
I would say that the typical frequency usually this is just for the Slavic countries, is once a week. I mean, depends on you. You might be doing great once a month. It really depends on your tolerance.
I think what's happened is the biohacking industry has made people think they need to be doing all these things like every single day. Like I go to this one group and they talk about, like, I get up in the morning and I do my infrared sauna first thing in the morning. And I'm like, no, you don't need to do that. Anyway.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
I can't help but say this. I was listening to a guy who has a hyperbaric chamber big enough. He does his workout in his hyperbaric chamber. He's got his red lights in the hyperbaric. I mean, on and on and on. But I won't segue it. That's good. I don't love the sauna. I tolerate it just fine. It's just not my thing. I like to exercise, but
that's a good way of sweating.
I will just try to do it once or twice a week. I don't want to do it every day. I don't thrive on it.
I wouldn't recommend doing it.
But I didn't shower afterwards. And when you say that, I go bingo, bango. Well, how come?
And
I just let it all stay on me.
Yeah,
No.
you got to wash the toxins off.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Biohackers will recommend things that you will need to quit your job in order to do those on a daily basis. I doesn't make any sense to me. What I did with my company, and this is very personal. I'm a father of a 4-year-old daughter, little girl that takes a lot of my free time, and it's a blessing for me. I'm not complaining. The opposite. I have a 19-year-old that also I like to spend a lot of time with. My wife, she deserves a lot of my time. I work, I write, I do research, I do podcast, I run a company. I don't have time for doing all this stuff that is recommended. It's crazy. When I put together my company, it was with that in mind. I want this to be not only affordable, but easy to be used by an average person. That you don't have to flip your life around these things. So that's why I use time control capsules and things like that, because you can take them and forget about it. You can bring it with you in your pocket and take it twice in your day, and that's all you need to do. It's not more than a small commitment twice a day. That's what I wanted, something simple. You can carry with you, you can bring it anywhere, and you can take it anytime that is meant to be used, and that's it.
Okay, I think we have 2 minutes. So, Katie, make it quick, Katie. One question, no follow-up, because Maha is on here too. You got to unmute.
No, we have work.
Okay.
You're muted.
You're muted. Okay, I'm going to move to Maha while you figure out how to unmute.
Awesome. So thank you, Dr. Haroldo.
My pleasure.
Yes. And my question has to do with the effect of glucose, direct ingestion of glucose on the terrain and the microbiome.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any information on that?
Well, you're concerned of glucose about the spike of insulin in your body?
The question, so it's related to, there's a doctor,
Maybe
David,
loosen the background there.
who has a glucose 101 protocol for resetting the
Nervous system.
nervous system, basically. And so in that process, you are taking an amount of dextrose by itself on a several times a day or throughout the day to reset the system. And he has pretty strong evidence around it. But the question is, like, what does that do to the microbiome?
Thank you, Martha.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good piece of information I was missing. So dextrose is a pretty bioavailable form of sugar. It goes into the cells like super quick. So I would not think that that's going to directly impact the microbiome. Now, if you have a long-lasting sugar type in being used, of course, that will spike your insulin levels, which has some implications in your inflammatory pathways and other things that can affect the microbiome to a certain extent. Dextrose, I don't think is going to do that. Unless you combine dextrose with something else. But it's one of the most easiest sugar types to be used in human cells. It goes super quick inside. So, like, I don't have really strong evidence about this, but just from knowing the biochemistry of dextrose, I will say I don't think it has any damage whatsoever or can have any negative implications to the microbiome balance.
Thank you. Good
Right.
to hear.
No.
Katie, did you get unmuted?
I did. I was trying to do the box.
Okay,
Hi,
you
Katie.
were the last question.
Thank you.
I mean, Norma Jean's still showing on here, but she never was able to.
It's a permanent
Katie,
at this
go
point.
ahead, Katie.
Man.
This has just been like my mind is blown by all of it. But the one question I have is I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2019, and I've avoided any of the medications and focused on exercise. I'm wondering how many people you had with Parkinson's in your study. I understand it's unique for everybody, but I was just wondering if you had a lot of people that have tried this process and what the results were.
We don't have. Well, first and foremost, we're launching, so I don't know. That's something I would like to see over time. I will keep a close eye on a lot of these trending medical conditions that are becoming more prevalent, unfortunately. I do believe, and something we shared with Martha many times, I do believe that there's a big piece of Parkinson's disease, as along with any other type of neurological related disorder, that is coming from a toxicological exposure. And I think that the imbalances in the microbiome and the underperformance on different organs in the body are also coming from that cumulative effect of the exposure to certain toxins. And I do believe that detoxification is a critical piece. And when I'm saying detoxification, please keep in mind, I'm talking about optimizing what nature does already, not something you're going to do that's not happening in the body already, but just upregulating things to make them more efficient so the body can deal with this overwhelming amount of toxins better. Again, for Parkinson, I think that's a huge piece. And so with Alzheimer's and any other type of neurological type of disorder.
Also, Katie, if you're not familiar with Dr. Ray Dorsey, he's written a book called Ending Parkinson's, and one of the things that he talks about specifically is toxic exposures, and one of those is dry cleaning fluid. So I didn't think about talking about that, but there is a direct relationship in some of the testing they've done in Parkinson's with the dry cleaning fluid molecule. So I would say, if you have Parkinson's or you're at risk of Parkinson's, do not dry clean your clothes.
I don't, since I don't work anymore, everything goes in the laundry.
But, they found some connections to like police officers and stuff who were having their uniforms dry cleaned all the time. So, and then Norma Jean typed her question. The question's about a supplement. You mentioned it contains folic acid. Is it really folic acid or methylated folate?
No, it's not folic acid. It's fulvic.
Fulvic acid. That's what I
Fulvic.
thought. Okay.
Yes.
Here, I'll type it in here.
So it's
Fulvic acid is
Yeah.
minerals from deep in the ground that are also from, plants, basically.
Yes. Yes.
From,
It's
long
ancient.
time ago.
Yeah, it's ancient things.
The book is Ending Parkinson's. Yeah.
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 And in Parkinson's. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Martha.
My pleasure. Hopefully.
Thank you so much for coming again tonight. And I'm so excited for your company launch. And
Thank you so much.
as soon as you have the information, I will send that out to my mailing list. So that's not just the people here tonight, but the rest of our mailing list, which is, thousands of people. but these are our super fans who really, you know, want the education. And I think we're very appreciative of everything you shared with us tonight and all the work you've done over the 10 years that I've known you. I appreciate that because you have such deep knowledge, so much more than really anyone I know. You and Dr. Davis know more about the microbiome than any of the microbiologists I know, the microbiome people. So it's
Well,
great to have you again. And
it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for everyone that was here with me and with Martha. And yeah, hopefully what I shared with you, it will help to a certain extent. Talk to me, communicate through my channels. I have an Instagram account that I'm mildly active. I don't like to get too much in social media, but I do respond when it's, again, don't ask medical advice. I won't give you any medical advice, but I can give you recommendations in terms of good things that you can incorporate in your daily life that are general. Do not ask specific questions because I can't. Unfortunately, but yeah, I love to interact and get conversations started. You have the email from the company, and you will get a lot of information now on my website whenever it's uploaded, which is going to be in a couple of weeks more. So looking forward to see you all there, and thank you so much.
thank you. Have a great night.
You too, Martha. Take care. Talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording here. Norma Jean, did you get your answer? I think we answered your question, but
Yes, you did.
sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks, Marta.
Did you have something else, Norma Jean?
Nope, that was it. I was fumbling when you called on me, and I was outside and I couldn't get the phone to pop for the right thing, but yeah.
Okay, well, we got back to you. Okay, well, great having you all here tonight. You know, I'm always impressed with everything that Haroldo's working on, so great to have him. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.